Now we're going to do some feathers, and these are about 4.5 inches, 4.25 inches long strips of that thicker paper, and they're about an inch, maybe a little wider than an inch. And I'm finding the middle, and I'm making a score so I can fold them in half. And like I said, you can make more than three. I'm putting three on, but this is how I make feathers. And then I'll take and I'll fold it right in half on that score, and then I take a cut and I cut in on the bottom, make it a point, and then I cut not all the way through there, and then I round it on the top. If you've done the pipe kit, you've done these a little bigger, but you've done them. And it looks almost like a bomb with the fins going the wrong way. And then I'll take my tuck tool burnisher and I'm going to score right into that fold. I've cut all three out. And this scoring is kind of important. It makes the feather look real. So I'll go all the way up, just on an angle, and bring it in toward the top so the last scores are almost vertical to that and parallel to that vertical score that we put in there. Now go on the other side. Now I've cut some the same paper. I've cut some long triangles that are about an inch longer than my feather, and I'll lay that right on top. It's white at the bottom and narrow to a point at the top, and you want to wet that fold and lay it right on top and try to get it placed. If you don't get it too wet, use a thicker bonding agent. You'll probably have an easier time with this. But you can see I got a little twist in it, and I can use my burnisher, either a tuck tool burnisher or a dental burnisher, to straighten it out. Kind of move it with my finger, get it where I want it. Sometimes I'll run my finger right up the top, the spine, get a little excess off, and then I'll let it dry, and I'll do that to all three feathers, dry them, and then I can make some adjustments here, get it straighter. It just fuses in when it dries, and I'll do that on all three, and then dry them, and then I'll turn it over and I'll do the other side, and that's what I've done there. There's one. Now I'm going to do the second one, and after I've got the spines on top and on the bottom, and they're dry, then I can cut the bottom to a little point with a pair of scissors or X-Acto knife. I'm going to use some tweezers to straighten that out. Now I'm going to snip the feather, and this back part I'm going to cut really thin, and I'm going to try to cut it in right close to the spine. With my fiskars. And when I start working my way up the feather, I'm going to cut it a little bit differently, but I want this to be really thin. And here I start at the bottom and I'm working my way up, and I cut in different lengths. You don't want to cut in all the same length, and I don't like to cut in all the way to the spine because you can nick the spine. But you can see some of my cuts are long and then some of them are short. If you cut them in all the same you'll leave a ridge. And this makes it look a little more realistic. And I've cut thousands of feathers, and I do them all the same, different sizes maybe, but they all look like feathers when I'm done. And I can straighten it out there. And it gives it that feathery look of an eagle feather. And then I'll turn it over, and I'll turn it around and cut the bottom of the other side. And that part will kind of curl the other way, which gives it a little more life, gives it a little more life-like look. And then I'll turn it back, and I'll work my way down. And I follow the scores pretty much. A lot of people want to know how I make my feathers. Now you know how I make my feathers, as well as a lot of the other detail that you're going to see revealed in this video. So I'll cut all 3 feathers like this, and then we'll have the feathers done. Now I'm going to make an ornament for those feathers to attach them to it, and it's to resemble an abalone shell disc. I used my leather paper to do this. I just took a sheet and folded it in half, and then wet it both sides with bonding agent, and then burnished it together hard. It's probably about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And I say about because it really doesn't matter, because abalones can be bigger or smaller. Abalone. And because an abalone has kind of a roundness to it, I'm going to lay it in the palm of my hand, and I'm going to take a burnisher that has a little roundness to the end, and I'm going to push it in and slipped out of my hand, concave it a little bit. And then I'll dry it before I poke holes in it to mount these feathers to it. Now I'm going to mount the feathers together. I'm going to wet them just on the tips, on that feathery end, and I'm going to form these feathers the way I want them. And I'm going to let those dry too. Get those points. You can see I cut the points. That's the little quills. And those will be his head feathers, and they'll go on his head. Now, this is kind of important here. You want to get them on the right side, and the disc is concaved. So put 4 holes in it. Almost like a box. Just go and mark them and then push them through. Now I've seen real ones, and they'll have different amounts of holes. It really depends on what they're used for, but this is going to work pretty well if you do it this way. And then it's all dry, but I'm going to make a little bigger hole. We're going to want to string through there too to attach those feathers, as well as fusing them on. We'll want to make them look like they're attached piece of leather or string. And there, you want the feathers to be on right, so they'll go on, so that's concave on the disc, and the feathers are going the other way. You're looking at the back of the feather now. They're kind of turned forward when you put them on the figure. So we'll string over these quills, and that'll help hold these feathers on till it's dry. And there's your head feathers.